All right. Welcome back to All Cars Reacts, y'all. It is time for yet another Motorweek retro review reaction. And this week I have chosen the 1991 Ford Explorer. Now you may say, why are you doing this one? Well, there's a few different reasons. Number one, the Explorer is the #1 best-selling SUV of all time. Yeah, let that sink in for a minute. And number two is I had a lot of experience with one of these. Company I worked for actually had one as a company vehicle. And so I've had a lot of experience with it, and, well, I have strong feelings about it. So as always, it's just going to be you and me sitting down and reminiscing a little over 30 years ago now, unbelievably. Sit back in your comfy chair, relax, grab a beverage. We do have some looks like water this afternoon, not very exciting. And let's reminisce a little bit about the first generation Explorer.
Well, hello and welcome again to Motorweek 90. We're glad to have you with us. To most people, the word explorer means fearless men and women that brave the unknown, daring souls facing tremendous hardships and possible death in the pursuit of knowledge. It also brings to mind a host of famous names, like Lewis and Clark, Amelia Earhart, and James T. Kirk. Ford's new Explorer doesn't face quite the same obstacles, but Dearborn's latest entry in the sport utility segment still has a big job ahead of it. It must maintain the market already established by the Explorer's Bronco II predecessor, while also breaking into the four-door wagon segment currently dominated by the Jeep Cherokee. A rough trip for any new vehicle, but one for which the Explorer is well equipped. It starts with a long 111.9-inch wheelbase. That's 17.9 inches longer than the old Bronco II wheelbase and nearly 10 inches longer than the current Jeep Cherokee. While that long wheelbase should help quell the rollover fears often associated with short sport utility vehicles, the real advantage is an interior room. There's an inch more legroom here than in the Jeep Cherokee, and an inch more headroom, and 2.3 inches more shoulder room. In addition, the seat back splits and folds, and cargo room measures a whopping 79.7 cubic feet, 8.5 feet more than the aging Jeep.
Yeah, so those numbers weren't adding up there for a minute, right? It's 10 inches more than the Jeep, but only 1 inch more rear legroom. Yeah, well, no, you can see this, it's cargo space. At least a good bit of it is cargo space. It is technically a successor to the Bronco II, but I've never thought of it that way. This is based on the Ranger, but they reversed the script on it, if you will. Instead of the Bronco II, to me, was like, let's make a really good off-roader, and now what do we do to have to add creature comforts to it? That's kind of my broad opinion of it. Then with the Explorer, I think they started the opposite direction, top down. Like, okay, we're going to make a family hauler that happens to be based on a truck platform and is going to have some four-wheel drive along the way. Undeniable success. And keep in mind here, I'm a big Jeep Cherokee fan. I had one. I was just a Jeep fan back then. Not then, but later had a Cherokee, and now, it was a little bit before this, I had a CJ5, and then after this, I had a Wrangler. So I was a Jeep fan, is my point. Never respected the Explorer back then.
Cargo net is standard on all models, and the cargo cover comes when you order the $21,760 Eddie Bauer Explorer. All Explorers get this slickly designed hatch with a window that opens separately. Wiper and defroster are optional on the $15,989 XL, which is the least expensive four-door model. The Explorer is Ford's first four-door sport utility vehicle, but a two-door version is also available. Both versions come down the same assembly line with the Ranger pickup, so the interior bears a resemblance. But these gauges would be at home in a Mustang GT. The Explorer gets a complete clear analog collection. The optional leather interior would be at home on a Lincoln. The driver's seat adjustments are both manual and power. The additional controls are for tailoring bolster and lumbar areas. It's easy to find a comfortable position, And the overall feel of that position is car-like. You sit in the Explorer, not on top of it, as in so many other sport utilities.
I will absolutely agree with that. As much as I did not like the Explorer back then, and it absolutely would not be something I chose, if you drive a Cherokee and then you drive this feels more car-like. This feels, I don't want to say it feels more like a minivan, but it feels more comfortable. It's more your family hauler. And I will not agree that those gauges look like they should come from a Mustang, but there was no doubt they were clear. And I look forward to what they say about the rest of the interior, but generally, it was a nice place to sit. And that hints at what I think I'm going to end with, which is the strengths of this Explorer.
Adjustments for the dual power side mirrors and power windows are made at the door armrest. And most everything is well within the driver's view and reach, including controls for heat and air conditioning, and for the Ford JBL stereo, a 145-watt unit that's been acoustically equalized to the interior. According to Ford research, only 1 in 10 drivers ever take their sport utility off-road, but the Explorer is ready for the task. Four-wheel drive models come with touch drive four-wheel drive that can be shifted on the fly. If you're the kind of diehard who likes to get out and lock hubs manually, Ford offers a get-your-feet-dirty system as an option.
Okay, so let's finish talking about the interior real quick. There's not a lot of problems with it. Ford, I have said before, Ford kind of waffles between two extremes, like, wow, like let's say the 86 Taurus, and then say in the 90s, in the 2000s, some interiors you look at and be like, ew, they really cheaped out on this. The Explorer kind of hits a middle ground. It actually isn't bad. The material quality isn't bad. I think it was certainly competitive at the time. But little things like that HVAC, it had a knob for the fan speed, but it still had the sliders for heat and everything else. And you can get that on a 70s car. So in some ways, for being a new car that I don't think they really knew how influential it was going to be, they still couldn't jump into the future in some ways. As for that four-wheel drive system, again, it's a weird situation. I respect the Ranger, but I don't respect the Explorer. And part of that is that having had Jeeps, and a buddy of mine who had an International Scout, and then later Jeep, I believe, the number of Explorers we saw stuck on the sand at the beach. Now, part of that may be that they didn't lower the air pressure in their tires, but this is not an off-road machine, and I've never really respected the four-wheel drive system here for much more than just getting out in the dirt a little bit.
Don't care about any of this, the Explorer is also available in two-wheel drive only. Both two- and four-wheel drive models are rated for towing 3,500 pounds. 6,000 pounds is possible with a frame-mounted hitch. That rating results from having a 4-liter V6 engine as standard equipment. Even the XL model gets it. Though based on the European 2.9-liter Cologne engine that Ford has used for years, it's improved and beefed up internally. Making 220 pound-feet of torque and 155 horsepower, the engine is port fuel injected and comes mated to a 5-speed manual transmission. 4-speed automatic overdrive transmission is optional. Our loaded Eddie Bauer Explorer with an automatic transmission went from 0 to 60 in 9.9 seconds. The quarter mile took 17.2 seconds and ended at 77 miles per hour. Those are excellent numbers, and incidentally slightly faster ones than for the last Jeep 4-liter we tested. If we have any complaint, it's that the engine generates a bit more noise than some of the V6s in late-model sport utility vehicles from Toyota and Nissan. All Explorers get anti-lock brakes for the rear axle, which should get the vehicle in and a panic stop. But our test Explorer was not the straightest stopping. Still, numbers were good, averaging to 126 feet and stopped from 60 miles per hour.
Okay, let's talk about that for a minute. Braking, it's okay. I mean, for a large, heavy sport utility, that's not bad. It was a little squirrely. You saw it. They're talking about it. Nothing outrageous there. Now, then they were talking about the engine. I have no problem with the engine. I've never thought it was overwhelmingly powerful. And, you know, those 0 to 60 times, okay, they said it was excellent. To me, the Cherokee always felt much faster, even if the numbers don't back it up. And part of that is the Cherokee is a much older design, and I love the 4-liter in the Cherokee. But it was rough and ready and truck-like, and it made gobs of torque. So driving the Cherokee and driving this were very, very different experiences. The Cherokee felt really small, more intimate, but then you felt the big engine, and because it had torque and it felt more like a truck engine, it shifted rougher, right? This felt more car-like. I know what they're saying, that the engine made more noise than a late model Toyota, for example, but overall, this just came across more refined than the Cherokee. Which I would choose back then, it would have been the Cherokee. But today, as an older man who wants his leather seats and maybe a bolster, suddenly I get the Explorer.
Feeling pedal made the brakes hard to modulate. This behavior may have been the result of low miles on our test vehicle. As for handling, the Explorer responds to a hard turn with less body roll than we'd have predicted. Plow at the front end, however, is heavy. The steering is not especially quick, but it transmits plenty of positive feedback to the driver. But the Explorer's high center of gravity really shows itself in a high-speed lane change maneuver. The vehicle performed adequately in our test, but drivers must remember that the Explorer is basically a truck, and it can't just be tossed around. An EPA rating of 15 city, 20 highway is not particularly impressive. We returned 18 in our mileage loop. To be fair, that's as good as you can expect in any 6-cylinder vehicle in this class. In our safety check, the Explorer fails to have airbags for either driver or passenger. It does have anti-lock brakes, if only on the rear, and shoulder belts for rear seat passengers. Despite a lack of airbags, we commend Ford for the Explorer's other safety equipment. Front and rear 2.5-mile-per-hour bumpers, side door impact beams, front head restraints, and even a high-mounted stoplight are all standard, even though they are not yet required by law in sport utility vehicles. Explorer competitors aren't so equipped. We like the balance that the Explorer strikes between truck-like utility and car-like comfort. We're impressed with its power and its room, and the Explorer's convenience features, such as its tailgate design and 40/60 split-folding rear seat, are beautifully thought out and better than those we often rave about in vehicles from Japan. Misses include brakes that, while adequate, do not inspire our confidence, and not so terrific fuel economy. For comparison, the aging Jeep Cherokee Wagoneer has less interior room and fewer convenience features. It is, however, more maneuverable off-road and offers anti-lock brakes on all 4 wheels. Toyota's 4-door 4Runner also has less interior room. It offers less power and load-pulling torque than the Explorer. It does have a smoother, quieter engine. It's all too rare these days that we can say we prefer an American vehicle to one from Japan. And it's not just the Explorer's size that makes it better. The credit also goes to designed-in features. Ford has clearly done a great job with this vehicle, which deserves to be called best in class.
Wow, what a positive ending. That was strong. I mean, Motorweek has never met a car they didn't like, but that was really, really strong. And, you know, I think that the two they compared it to really kind of demonstrate the strengths of the Explorer. The one I drove actually had the 5-speed. It was a 2-door, the one that I drove for the longest period of time, and it was a 5-speed. I hated that thing. And like I said, as a younger kid, right, young adult, who was very opinionated and loved his Jeeps, I dismissed the Explorer. I saw him stuck in the sand. It was a mom mobile. As I've gotten older, I see the benefits of it. And watching this at the end there, where they compare it to the Cherokee and then they compare it to the 4Runner, maybe the Explorer's based on the Ranger and it has that 4-wheel drive. But to me, there's no comparison between the three of them. The Cherokee is much smaller, unibody, a famous off-roader, and spirited. I loved my Cherokee. The 4Runner, to me, right, was not as nice inside. Maybe the engine was smoother, had a smooth Toyota engine, but everything else about it was rougher and more crude. It rode like there was concrete in the wheels and no springs. I get why people love the 4Runner. I'm not one of them. Same reason I don't like the Tacoma. And then this thing comes out in the market, and it's not a 2-door Blazer, right? Now it's got 4 doors and luxury conveniences and safety, so you can feel better putting the family in it. It wasn't a minivan, but it had that image of like, I could be going off-road even though I'm just going to the grocery store. I totally get why this Explorer became such a sales success and why it went on to become a sales success. And I cannot end this without talking about how much I love being able to open the glass, load something in, and close the glass without opening the whole hatch. The Explorer drifted. It like everything else, it always ended up just getting a little bit bigger while technically getting better. And as you know, we have one sitting in the driveway. And don't know if we'd get another one. You know, the latest one, it looks better and it's got more stuff, but it doesn't feel as focused on really anything. It's not focused on being sporty. It's not focused on utility. It's not focused on creature comforts, and it's not focused on off-road ability. It just is. And it's kind of nice to go back and see this and watch where they put the emphasis and how they really, really were so different than, I would say, almost any of their competitors outside of, well, dare I say, Range Rover. That's my opinion on it. This was a car I didn't respect. I hated. Let's put it that way. I hated it. But I look back on it extremely fondly now because I absolutely think Ford knocked this one out of the park. And with that, let me know what you think below. As always, if you like the video, there is a button for that down below too, and I do appreciate y'all spending just a few minutes with me. Thanks for being here.